Hey y'all, it's John, and today we're going to talk about a really basic question, which is how much money do you have to have in investments to have a comfortable retirement? Now, there's a lot of assumptions we've got to make to get to that point, and not the least of which is what defines a comfortable retirement. This channel is all about budgeting, saving, investing, and building up a life of abundance and rebuilding that spirit in America and in the Western world, I guess, free market economy that you can save your way to an abundant retirement. I think it's really been lost, and I want to recapture that. And today I'm going to show you step by step what it actually takes to enjoy retirement. Now, there's a few things, basic premises we've got to understand here, which is number one is you've got to have two things, and that is discipline and time on your hands. Discipline is really two things itself. The first is to start investing. And I mean start now, right? Pause this video, go open up a Fidelity, a Schwab, a Vanguard account and start investing, and to do so every single month with discipline. Every single month, don't miss it. Put it out there, let it grow, and watch it become a nest egg for your retirement. And number two is time on your hands. The longer you've got, the more wealth you can accumulate. It's hard to see at the beginning because the amounts are small and they seem to grow really small, but suddenly it starts to become a torrent, and you'll reach a point where your growth in your investments every year match your income, but ignore it and let it build for the future. So what is an abundant retirement? Well, we want to have the numbers be reasonable enough for you to say, yeah, I can do that. So I'm going to say that for the majority of us watching this, $100,000 a year. Okay, now for some of you, you're like, I couldn't live off of that. And for some of you, that is an inconceivable amount. That would be pure wealth to you. But it's a nice round number, and I think most of us would aspire to $100,000 a year in investments. If your amount is lower, then it's easier to accomplish. Now, when you take that money out, you have to pay taxes on it. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all that, but I'm going to show you what kind of numbers we're actually talking about here. So I'm going to flip over to my screen here, and I've got this really awesome calculator from Bankrate. I'll provide a link to it below. And the first thing we need to do is figure out how much you have to have, and then we're going to look at how you get to that amount. I hope that makes sense. So the first thing is, how much do you have to be able to live off of it and bring home $100,000 a year? Now, I've actually already done the calculation, so if you're a cheater, you can just look at the screen. But the first thing is, I'm going to start with an estimate of $2 million. Now, don't get scared. If you think that is so outrageous you can't possibly conceive of it, that's great. Bear with me. It's doable. And again, if you think that your number is $50,000 a year, then you can adjust these numbers yourself and see where it falls. If you want to retire early and you're willing to have a very be careful with your spending, I guess is what I'm saying, then you could do this at a much, much lower level. The nice thing about getting to retirement is I'm making some assumptions that you're following my ideas of being debt-free, all right? If you've paid off your house and you've paid off your cars, you take modest vacations, and you live below your means, you cook at home, maybe you grow your own food, I don't care. But if you're living below your means, it's shocking how much you don't need to actually live on. I mean, you're paying your insurance, you're paying your utilities, and you're buying food. You don't need a lot more than that. We can live very, very, very simple lives. But regardless of what your number is, I'm going to go with $100,000, and we're going to start with $2 million. Then you need to know how long you're going to withdraw from. So my whole assumption here is that you are a young professional starting off in your career. You're 21 years old, and we're going to assume you work till 67. And then after you retire, and none of this takes into account what Social Security is going to be paying you, okay? So that's over and on top of this. 33 years of withdrawals. That would take you to 100 years old. Most of us don't live that long, so this is a nice assumption. Rate of return. This right here. Now this, we need to take into account the eroding value on your money of inflation. There we go. So to calculate rate of return, we need to know a couple of other things. First is what's the average inflation rate? And then the other one would be what is the average return of the S&P 500? Now you can use stock market, you can use whatever you want to, but what's the average return on the S&P 500? There's a good article right here on Investopedia, and it says that since 1926 to 2018, it was between 10 and 11%. Since 1957, when they adopted 500 stocks into the index, it's been about 8%. So we want to be conservative here, so let's put that 8% in our mind. Now let's look at the average inflation rate. And let's look at this one right here. I like this chart because it shows, back in the 19 teens, it was 9.8%. During the 70s, it was 7.25. During the 80s, it was 5. And since then, we've really had a long run, many decades of being somewhere under 3% or even under 2%. This long-term estimate, or this long-term average, is 3.1. And before the 70s, it's 2, and before that, it was less than 2. So we don't really know. If the economy goes sideways, we really could have a spike in inflation, but you also do see inflation going negative once in a while. So just to be conservative, let's take that 3%. So if your investments are earning 8% and inflation is 3%, that's leaving you with a net, really you're earning 5% on your money. And so that's why I put 5% here for your rate of return. Periodic withdrawal, I could do this on a yearly basis. I could do it on a monthly basis. It really doesn't make a difference. Let's put in that $100,000 per year, and the interest is going to compound monthly. So, as you can see, with $2 million in the bank, if you do return a net of 5% and you take out $100,000 a year, that money will last more than 33 years, okay? With these assumptions, you would still have $1.7 million in the bank. That's pretty astounding. So you could drop this number. Let's look at 1,500,000. Okay, it runs out after 27 years. So what I'm going to do is let's stick with that 2 million because that's a really big number. And I want to show you what it takes to actually get there. All right. So I'm going to flip over here, and Ramsey Solutions, it's got some great calculators on here, and I love so much about his approach to keeping life simple, paying down debt, and investing for the future, and giving back to people. He's got this great calculator that's so simple. There's so many calculators out there that become massively complex. They're ridiculously complex. But like I said, you're a young professional, you're starting off at 21 years old, you're going to work to retirement, and you're starting with nothing. Let's say you have $100 just because you want to go start your first account. You found one that allows you to open up with $100, and you think there's going to be that 8% return. Calculate. Calculate. Let's reload the page. That's how you know it's live, guys. You put in 100 a month, and you're going to be... And you'll notice here he's got a note that the 30-year return on the S&P has been roughly 12%. So that 8% is super, super conservative. So if you put in just $100 a month for the rest of your life, you will save up $576,000. A far cry from the $2 million we're talking about. But this is assuming you do nothing more than $100 a month, $25 a week. Most of us spend more than that on eating out a couple of times, Starbucks coffee, right? We could do this. And this is not taking into account any growth in how much you put into your investments over time. This is just a one amount, and I'm going to do this for the next 46 years, right? Start off with 100. And even if you're like, well, that's not going to get me to 2 million, that's okay, because when you get your next raise, put that into it. Now all of a sudden you're saving 200. And as your situation improves, as you move up the ladder, as you make more income, stay focused on the goal and put more and more into your investments. And for the investments, I'd like to say I'm very conservative. I have a video on my 3-bucket strategy, which is basically 3 different funds I invest in. One is an S&P 500, but please go watch the video, and it kind of spreads your risk out a little bit and maximizes your returns. So let's say you put in 200 a month. All of a sudden that jumps up, it doubles essentially to 1.1. So let's do it again. $400 a month. You're over $2 million right there. Okay. Now $400 a month, that's $100 a week. That might seem inconceivable to you. There's no possible way. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You couldn't do that. I'm encouraging you, just start. Because as your situation changes, at least you've started building, at least you've started the habit of investing. And as your income improves, you can start plowing more into your investments. And so you end up doing some makeup. Maybe you move to a job where you get a retirement plan. You have a 401k or something like that, and your employer contributes to it as well. Now all of a sudden, instead of just one fund trying to get 2 million, you've got one over here, and then you've got another one over here where you're getting that employer contribution as well. We're looking at a total lump sum here you're trying to get to. Almost don't care where it's coming from or how it's structured between retirement, savings, and investing, long, high yield savings accounts, whatever it happens to be. But basically, $400 a month will get you to over $2 million at the age of 67. And at that point, you're free. You've got $100,000. You can take it out every single month, and it will last you essentially for the rest of your life. Now, there's a lot of assumptions here, and I can't make any guarantees, and I will say I am not a financial advisor. I am an engineer and a nerd who loves finances, but I want to help place that seed in your mind that it can be done, that you're not going to get to retirement and live off of, $700 in Social Security. It can be done with discipline and time on your hands, but the key is to get started, do it consistently, and watch tiny amounts really start to grow. And there's going to be 2 things you feel as you watch your accounts grow. One will be, look at the pile of money I've got access to. Don't think like that. Don't make the mistakes I've made. Let's put it that way. Leave it there to grow. Don't think about the new car. Don't think about vacations. Whatever it is, leave it to grow. The best thing you can do is send money to an investment and forget about it and never look at it. The second thing you're going to notice is it's addictive. Because once you see those amounts grow, you want to put more in there, because suddenly the future becomes bright and becomes exciting, and you can see that life of abundance. So I hope this helps, guys. I hope that really frames what you've got to do. If you're young, I invite you, start right now. Watch a few other of my videos, but get started right now. If you're older, don't let this discourage you. You may be in a place where you can pack away more now and make up some of this, but don't let another day pass without getting started. And if you are older, it's even more important for you to start as fast as possible. So I hope this helps. I would love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your questions. Let me know in the comments sections below. And please remember, the most important thing you can do, smash that like button for me, because it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. So guys, I appreciate you being here, and I hope this helps. Thanks.